I got in trouble for my gain recently.
Your gain?
Yeah, like if it's too, you can like decide on the sensitivity of these. Oh. If it's too much, then you like, comes in too loud.
Oh.
But my sound guy reprimanded me. For this episode, I sat down with friend Taylor Patterson, founder of Fox Fodder Farm, a floral operation out of New York City specializing in deliveries, events, workshops, and from what I can tell, beautiful aesthetic tastemaking in general. Taylor's work ethic is impressive, as is her consistency and her creativity. So it's fun for me to learn more about Fox Fodder Farm, how it came to be, and I hope it will be enjoyable for you as well. Thanks for tuning in. This is Ty, your host, and here we go with Taylor Patterson of Fox Fodder Farm. Well, thank you for finally making this happen.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't mean like that.
I mean, like, yes, no, no.
Here we are, Monday night after a long work day.
Sort of. Well, not as long. Like I said, I got to go to the gym today at like 3. So
that's not normal.
No. That's never normal.
Yeah.
But I've kind of joined the Equinox, which is like 4 blocks away from my office. So it's kind of nice because then all my employees are in the office and I can just be like, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Bye.
Where's the office?
It's on Howard Street. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we moved. We used to have our studio, right? Because when I met you, we had that pop-up on North 8th Street. And then we moved our studio to Bushwick. Mm-hmm. Had this really pretty studio. And now in a basement on Canal Street.
Cool.
Which, it's cool. I mean, there's cockroaches, and it's really loud, and you can hear the traffic overhead, and you're in a basement.
Sounds like New York.
But it's actually, it's like so much better. There's something that's like weird about the fact that it's like moving from this like beautiful sunlit space where it was like, oh, like everything's so nice, to this kind of grody basement that's just like, you're a little bit more in it.
Yeah. Keeps you grounded.
Yeah, you could say that. Also, it's just like the reality of like the flower world. It's like, it's not all roses.
Oh yeah.
Pun intended.
There you go. Well, I want to get into that. How long have you been doing it? I
think. Okay, I've been in New York for 10 years, like exactly.
Dang.
And I was waitressing for a couple years, and so I think it's been like 8.
8.
Yeah.
Fox Fodder Farm, 8 years old.
Fox Fodder Farm, 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
not necessarily not a short amount of time. No. But it's like, it's evolved. It started I started with this stand at the Brooklyn Flea selling potted plants in mason jars. It was so Brooklyn. And they loved it. Brooklyn loved it.
Yeah.
2011.
That's what they needed.
It was like 2010, 2011. And then, it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. So how do you go from waitressing to that?
I got fired. And
your hand was forced.
I was I was a bad waitress. I got fired. No, I didn't get fired. I just didn't get put back on the schedule. But during that time, I had been working for another florist in the city, and I really loved it. And then I just kind of started doing some stuff on my own, and was, in the city, network is a big thing. Mm-hmm. So I was just fortunate to know a lot of people who were really supportive. And so when I started doing this, and it was anytime anybody needed flowers for something, they would just call me to do it.
Yeah.
So from there, it was and then I had some friends who had restaurants. So then I was doing the restaurants, and then it just, kind of grew in that way.
And then how did you even originally have the interest? How did you even become a flower person?
I think, I grew up, both my parents are gardeners, big into plants. And, so that was always something that just felt really natural. I was everybody likes this stuff.
You're around it your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in Delaware on like a farm, not like a working farm, but just like we had horses and chickens. And yeah, my parents were really into gardening. So when I moved to New York, I was kind of like, I didn't know really what I wanted to be doing. I didn't know, I really didn't know. I was like totally lost.
Yeah.
And so I was waitressing just because it was like, it's kind of what you do when you're trying to figure it out. And I started working for a landscape designer, digging holes. And then when the summer ended, I got the job with the florist, and I just like really, really loved it. Yeah. And so I think the interest sparked it was just that like I saw someone else doing it, and I was like, I like that. Like I want to do that.
Yeah. Well, what did you like about it?
I like that it was like really hands-on. I like that you're like making something. You're working with, elements of nature, which in the city is like really nice.
Right.
I have to remind myself sometimes of that because like now it's been the connection to nature with flowers is like less and less. It's just like flowers is work.
Yeah.
But I think that was a big part of it in the beginning. And it's like, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And you see a lot of flowers in the city. Not as beautiful as your arrangements, but you see them all on the side of the sidewalk all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's a big part of, the bodegas. It's like just like lined up with lilies and roses from Ecuador. But it's just like, that's such like a New York thing.
Everybody wants them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing but flower. Have you ever heard that song? Nothing but flowers?
No, who's that by?
Talking Heads.
Maybe I have.
It's good. I'll get the rights to it maybe. Play it in this episode. That's cool. And so would the childhood being around the gardening, is that play into your approach now, or is it like?
I think it did in the beginning, but kind of a lot of people who work in my industry say that. They're like, I grew up with a grandmother who like loved gardening and I was so inspired. Which like blah, 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 blah. I think, I studied art history, I'm into aesthetics.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of my design and like the approach to floral arrangements and like floral design is just pretty much built in like how I perceive aesthetics. Yeah. And what my tastes are.
Cool. And so you bring your own taste to it. What else do you do that's different than the others?
Well, right now there's a lot of us, and everyone's trying to do something different.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Which I think is really cool because you're seeing a lot of just like people really like pushing the envelope of like what was considered to be the like acceptable standard in flowers.
Yeah.
I kind of am past trying to do something different.
Right.
I just want to do something that feels good, feels true to like what I'm like trying to say this without sounding like a total D-bag, but
take your time.
Which then I had to like pause to like be like, I want to say D-bag, but I'm not gonna. It's another word I could come up with. I just want to do something that kind of that feels like true to the brand that I have, and is also kind of like true to how I am, since it is my company.
Definitely.
And a lot of that is like something that I don't want to come off as if trying too hard.
Right.
Which probably shouldn't say that, but
yeah.
I don't want to come off as trying too hard. I don't want to come off as like we don't really do like big grand events or like big over the top things, because that's just like not how I am.
Right.
So I think I've kind of learned that a lot of what Fox Fodder Farm is so much of an extension of me and just like my personality. So, I don't think that we're doing anything different. It's just that we're just doing things that are, sorry, I shouldn't knock on the table. Do things that are like kind of me.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you were looking for the words like that feels true to you, because a lot of the people that I talk to on the show I think that's what's interesting about it, whether they're making music or starting a business or, writing, whatever it is, that there's usually something internal that's driving the quest at the beginning, and then that it's easy for that to get kind of muddled along the way, especially when you're competing or trying to become popular or something.
And money gets involved.
Right.
I mean, we definitely have clients that will ask me for things that normally I wouldn't do, but I'm like, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to pay my rent this month.
Right.
But I also I don't want to be above that, because, you're building a business, and I kind of want to be grateful for that.
Right.
So it's like, if you tell me you want 100 sunflowers in a vase, I'll be like, okay, sure, I'll do that. But definitely in that not being the primary purpose.
Yeah.
The making money thing, it's always tough with a small business, because obviously you have to make money. And when it's also based in something that is creative and therefore close to you, I think it's hard to find that balance of where you're pushing yourself to be creative, maintaining integrity, but also not cutting yourself off to potential other opportunities, or also letting your ego get the best of you and just being like, no, I won't do that because I'm an artist,
right,
or whatever.
Yeah. And the opportunity from the marketplace might be something that you never saw coming or didn't think you were interested in.
Yeah.
But you follow the path.
Yeah.
So when you first started, walk me through that, I guess, deciding to start the thing. What was going through your head?
What was going through my head was, I was like, I don't want to be a waitress anymore.
Yeah.
No, at the time, my boyfriend at the time was he's a very ambitious and motivated person. And so he was just I was kind of I think I want to do flowers. He's like, all right, let's just do it. You should do it. Mm-hmm. And was actually you should get this stand to the Brooklyn Fleet, and helped me. It was super helpful, and was also introducing me to people, and was just you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Kind of actually decided. I don't think I would have had the courage or the confidence to just be oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But
how come?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It was before Instagram.
Yep.
It was before it was before social media in that way. I mean, before Instagram. And so it's how do you get clients? How do you get seen?
Yep.
It wasn't as formulaic and potentially possible.
Yeah.
It was kind of way more unknown. But no, Noah was super, he was just super supportive. And I just in a way that just made it so I didn't ever question it.
Yeah. The boost that you needed at the beginning to realize that you could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then it evolved, and now you have a team now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 8 or 9 people in the mix. I don't know. I have to plan our Christmas party, so I actually should know.
Make sure you got the guest list down.
Yeah, I've got to count everybody. There's quite a crew.
Yeah.
And it's funny. There's a lot of different personality types, and we're all really close because it's still a small team, so everyone's works pretty closely with each other.
Yeah. And how would you describe what you do to someone who knows nothing about it?
It's Fox Fodder Farm. It's a floral design company, but we do flower arrangements for events, weddings, sort of. Not as many. It's a small fraction actually of our business now. A lot of restaurants and stores would do flowers on a weekly basis. So when you go into a restaurant, there's a big branch arrangement or something.
Yep.
A big vase with a lot of branches in it.
Yeah.
We do that.
Yeah.
And then we do deliveries. So people, when they want to send flowers. We have that. And then just like collaborations with different brands.
Yeah.
Doing either like a photo shoot or an installation, but all made with obviously like floral material.
Yeah.
I don't really dip too far into like other things.
Yeah.
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 It's pretty flower based.
You
And we
hang-
do like some garden design and like people want plants, but it's mostly flower, cut flower.
Gotcha. And looking back, like over the last 8 years, what stands out along the way as in terms of like evolution points? Is there anything specific where you hired this person or changed location or something that was notable in your trajectory?
Yes. There's been a few things. So I started like my first year I was like working out of my landlord's garage. My landlord at the time let me use his garage. It was when I was living in like East Williamsburg. And so I moved from there into a studio that I shared with 2 friends. And it was like I had a table and like that was it. And then I moved into like another studio. It was always like it's weird how it like had to do with space. And now actually the company or business is like the most successful it's ever been, and we're in a freaking basement.
Yeah.
But there was always like those pivotal moments of like having more expensive rent.
Yeah.
And then like bringing more people on and having those financial obligations and having to like meet them.
And always having to balance that.
And having to like balance that and like figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there was like a moment 2 years ago where I'd had an employee kind of quit / I let her go suddenly. And that for me was scary because at that time I was like $50,000 in the hole and with $100,000 in accounts receivable that just like people weren't paying, like with a credit card bill that was like insanely high. Being like, I don't know how I'm going to pay anybody. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. I don't know. Like, I literally don't know how anything's going to get done. And I just kind of at that moment had to like put my head down and call people and be like, you owe me money.
Yeah.
But, which like didn't be kind of aggressive.
Yeah.
But that moment was when I think I really took hold of the business part of it.
Yeah.
Not just the creative development and like creating a brand and here's our aesthetic identity. And it was like, oh shit, I'm running a business.
Yeah.
And that was like a big moment. I think that's probably been the biggest moment. Having to like turn it all around.
Yeah.
And and it's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So what else? What did you have to do at that point? You said, okay,
I just had to. I had to accept that the way I was doing things was not the way that I could continue doing things.
Yeah. Which was what?
It was just like kind of like letting just like going with the flow and actually not really like having a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I have like any like grand plans now, but it's just like thinking actually ahead.
Yeah.
Versus just being like keeping up in a way.
Right. And creating a process.
Yeah, and creating a process and just being way more aware, and then also like, much more of like a leader, being a better leader, and I think having to look at myself a lot.
Yeah.
And the way that it was kind of like let things slide, that I like shouldn't let things slide, and
Yeah. Well, it seems like from a spectator's point of view that there's all these different customers demanding things, and then there's one-off customers, and then you assume that if you deliver your end of the bargain that you'll get paid, but maybe you never thought of the idea that
oh my god, we had a
me.
wedding where my accountant called me and was like, hey, what's this open invoice for, like yada yada? And I was like, what do you mean open? He's calling me in December, the invoice is from October. I was like, that's a wedding we did in October. And he's like, it's open, hasn't been paid. I was like, well, why did I do the wedding if it wasn't paid? So I called the guy And I was like, hey, your invoice, you never paid for your wedding. He was like, yeah, you never really sent me an invoice. Like, literally. He was like, well, you never sent an invoice. He was like, I'll pay you right now.
Yeah.
Like, but, like, that was the thing. It was just like, I mean, people, it's, you know, if no one sends you an invoice.
Right. You're waiting for it.
Yeah.
It never comes.
I mean,
yeah.
He should have been like, hey, I got to pay you.
Yeah.
But instead, you know.
And so what do you do now differently to keep track of that stuff?
I mean, we're just like way more on top of it.
Yeah.
I have, I've hired people to be on top of that. Because that was another thing. It was just a realization that, like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So that was also a big turning point, was just thinking that all of these things, that they didn't take up that much time, or like they weren't that difficult. It's not that difficult to send an invoice. It's not that difficult to write up a budget. It's not, none of this stuff is difficult, but it does take time. It does take energy. And so I was just doing it. Well, I was doing it poor. I was like not doing it, and the person who was supposed to be doing it wasn't doing it well, but I also wasn't checking.
Yeah.
So now it's just like being way more on top of those things, spending the money and hiring the people who are going to do it and do it well.
Right.
My friend Jean, who owns Vinegar Hill House, she was always like yelling at me. She was like, don't do the things that you don't want to do, because you're not going to do it, and that's not going to get done, and then you're going to be fucked.
Yeah.
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 She was like, just hire people to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hire people with an expertise in this case.
Yeah.
In
And
accounting
like
or whatever.
spend the money.
Yeah. Right.
Because
that'll free you up to do your thing.
And so I did that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's been a help.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so so do you free yourself up from monitoring the accounting books, for example? But like then
Also, like, I'm bad at it.
yeah.
Like, I'm terrible at
Right.
it. Like, every time I send a budget, I have to have 2 people look it over, and they're like, you were like $3,000 off, and I'm like, oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you ideally be working on if?
I think it's like what's next. It's like kind of next step, the business development and how to push forward.
Yeah.
That's exciting to me.
Can you walk me through the day-to-day?
The core group meets at the flower market.
Yeah. Which is where?
On 28th Street between 6th and 7th. We meet there anywhere from like 7 to 8 a.m. And then everybody's kind of got their tasks that they're in charge of, or their things that they're in charge of. So it's like divvying up what needs to be done, kind of helping each other where, if someone's got like for example, Corinne, who works with me, she's in charge of all of our accounts. But like Marianne is in charge of all of the deliveries. So it's like if Corinne's got like a bunch of accounts to pull, but Marianne's only got one delivery, it's like just kind of like helping.
Yeah.
So that's normally how it starts, and then it's just like everyone kind of going. Marianne goes to the shop and like works on deliveries. Corinne's like going to, I don't know, the Met Brower to like change out the branches there. I kind of pick up what needs to be picked up because with the accounts, a lot of times there are certain things that have to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
So, like I'll pick up and I'll go like do another one.
Yeah.
We're taking everything from the flower market.
From the flower market to various locations.
Various locations.
Yeah.
And we usually pick it out like that day or the day before.
Yeah. You pick it out at the flower market? Mm-hmm. And so you show up
because there's flowers like coming in every day. So it's like, especially if you're doing something that's got to last a week, it's like you want to get something that hasn't been sitting there for 4 days already.
So you have your people at the flower market, and you're like, hey, can you get me this thing next?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Or they just bring in random stuff, and you're like, oh, I'll take that.
Take that.
Yeah.
And then how do you decide what to take?
What to take?
Is that that's your
That's
secrets?
like, that's our skill.
You're
That's what we
extracting.
do. That's how we decide. I mean, it sort of depends. We have like different, different accounts or like different things demand a different aesthetic. So like Cafe Outro, for example, like Outro, Estella, and Flora Bar are all part of this like same restaurant group. And like the like aesthetic they like is like natural, seasonal, with like a little bit of a twist or edge. So it's like we'll go and choose like really beautiful like seasonal branches, but then add like a palm thing
Yeah.
in it or something. Yeah. And then we have this store called Ula Johnson, which just like she wants flowers, like a lot of flowers. It's like super romantic. So it's kind of, and she likes pink. Where it's like if we did pink at Outro, I think Ignacio would be like texting me, being like, "What?
Okay, yeah.
What is this?"
So it's kind of customized.
Like, by it's client. Customized, and it's like understanding the aesthetic of the place and like what's going to work in there. I think the thing is like in our industry right now, it's like a lot of industries. There's like trends, and I see people, other florists, establish a style and aesthetic that's very trend driven, that doesn't always complement the space that they're working in. That's not to say that there are people who are like very trend driven that like work with brands that are equally trend driven. Yeah. So it's like a really awesome compliment. But when you're like doing something that's trendy and you're in a place that's kind of like classic or like maybe the vibe is like more casual and rustic and you're putting in crazy spray paint stuff, it's just like there's a disconnect and it doesn't go. Right. So we just kind of like with all of our clients and with all of our spaces, it's like considering the space, who's there, like what kind of people are going to be there, what's going to like complement, and
Yeah. So you lead with the space. The client approaches you and you say, okay, what kind of space are we talking about? Yeah. And then what are your interests? And then how do we meld those things together? Exactly. And then your secret sauce decision-making.
Secret sauce decision-making, which isn't so secret, but then sometimes, I'll be like, you can never use this material again. And then I'll like choose it a week later. Yeah. And all my employees are looking at me with like eyebrows raised, being like, seriously? Yeah. You just said we couldn't use that. It's like, it's never a hard line. Yeah. I was like, it's different this week. Yeah.
And then how
it's got to be like fluid and flexible. Yeah.
It sounds like you enjoy being on a team.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that part. I definitely, it's fun for me to see people kind of like start in this industry and like really develop and like get better and like get good. I really like that part. Yeah. No, and I like being on a team. I don't think that I would enjoy it if it was just me. Yeah. Yeah.
And what have you learned? Because I mean, managing 7 people, 8 people is a job in itself.
Yeah. It's like being a parent. I'm like, it's that you don't matter, and everybody else does. Yeah, yeah. No, I've learned it's just like it's communication. It's like communication. I think in terms of like the kind of boss I want to be, I want to be fair. I want to be respected, and I want to be somebody that like my employees can talk to, because I just think that that's the only way that like you can. Actually, that's the only way I'm going to like get what I want. Right. Without, not trying to like sound like I'm manipulative, but when everybody's working, when everyone feels like that their work is appreciated and that like they're doing a good job and they're growing, you want to continue to do that.
Absolutely. It's better for everyone.
It's better for everyone. Yeah. So there's a lot of talking. A lot of talking about how to talk to each other. I mean, I employ primarily women who are like got some intense personalities. So it's like, lead with, before you like get mad and maybe like say something snarky, can you just lead with, I'm feeling frustrated. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of a lot of managing of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with any kind, orchestrating any kind of operation, the more you can communicate, the better. And then you
like over communicating, like to a point where it's like it's almost like beating a dead horse, but it's just like it was just like talking. Yeah. And, like it's literally like talking about how to talk to each other.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say then that you talk a lot, and then you realize that there's some disconnect between the way you're speaking, and so then you improve it, but you keep talking, but now you know how to communicate without offending each other. Exactly. And then now you're moving even faster.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you look for when you hire? You said you had a lot of different personalities.
It's funny that everyone I've hired has none of them had flower experience. That was never really a priority of mine. It's a personality. It's a work ethic.
Yep.
It's if you're keen to, if you're the first one to like grab the broom, that speaks volumes. It's just like a work ethic, and then kind of general disposition, I think, because it is so small. It's like it's important for me that everybody gets along.
Sure.
And so if there's like somebody interviews and they are super qualified, but like the personality type would be like too difficult.
Right.
I think I'm not in a place right now where I can just like let that not be a major factor.
Yeah. And the work ethic thing is obviously essential, and it must be nice for your employees to have a leader that is so in the weeds and who built this thing.
Yeah,
from nothing.
I have to remind myself all the time, like, be like, oh wait, I've already done all of this stuff, so I'm not doing that actually.
Right. But you're used to it, and that's why it exists.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, it's like everyone's willing to work hard because everyone works hard.
Right.
It's,
you feed off of each other.
Yeah, and I think when everyone's working hard, it's like almost easier to get stuff done.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely, and they know that you care, and they can see where their, where their hard work is going.
Yeah.
And along the way, has it always been a straight trajectory, or did you have any moments of uncertainty along the way?
I mean, like every day.
Every day, yeah.
Yeah, every day. Yeah, there's been a million times where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, I should go get a job. Yeah. Like, what would be nice? I'd like go get a job, go to an office, maybe wear a nice outfit. Have like a schedule, not have to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
But I think I'd be bored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this keeps you around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the like hustle of it. There is a big part of me that really enjoys the hustle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to picture it happening, and how your team is one of, a lot of people in this industry doing that, and that's just goes for any industry.
Yeah.
There's people running around the city trying to make something happen, and picking up business here and there, and hiring people, and learning, and getting frustrated, and learning, and sticking to it. But it's fun to imagine.
Yeah.
And
I think,
particularly for me, like I don't know anything about
the
flower industry. And
it's a cool industry. Yeah. I mean, there's like when you go to the flower market, the guys who are the various vendors, like they're like family. They've been doing that their whole lives. Mm-hmm. Pete and then his son Vinny works there, and like Vinny grew up there, and then Chris is like been working there since he was 16. It's such an amazing like and unique thing, because it is so, you don't really have a lot of people that come to the New York, that like work as vendors at the New York Flower Market that aren't generational. It's really cool. And it's, I think I love like that part of it almost the most.
Yeah.
Because it's just like so many different types of people, and it's just, it feels really special.
Yeah.
It feels like being part of something that's like really special, and also kind of, and this is sad, but it's like fading.
I was going to say, like out old fashioned.
It's like you think about like Little Italy in, downtown Manhattan, and like how there used to be all those vendors of like the different pasta people and cheese people, and just like how that's all kind of like disappearing.
Yeah.
I lived in a building, I lived above a restaurant called Florio's, and the building's not there anymore, but like that restaurant had been there since forever. Yeah. And all the guys who worked there, they'd been there forever, and like their sons were busboys, and it's just like, that's still, you still get that at the New York Flower Market.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you know them all.
And everybody.
Yeah, it's a community down there.
Yeah.
And it's
like there's the Dutch, and then there's like the Greeks, and then there's like the Guyanese guys, all these different groups.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where are all the flowers coming from?
All over the world.
All over the place.
Yeah. They're coming from all over the world.
Yeah.
Like Holland, Japan, South America, California, In the summer, there's like different local growers that drop stuff off. It's like everywhere. The New York flower market, I think, in the U.S. is like San Francisco is really good, but in New York flower market, it's like you're getting like we get a lot of the like best stuff is coming to New York, and even though the market is shrinking, I mean it used to be like many blocks, and now it's half of a block because there's every building's just being taken over by another hotel.
Oh. But there's still a market for the flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what will happen?
I think they're all trying to just like figure out where they can move.
Yeah.
But like the Greeks don't want to move.
Yeah. Greeks.
So it's the Greeks. Yeah, the Greeks don't want to move. Louis doesn't want to move. So that's a problem because it's like they can't not all agree to move.
Yeah.
Like everybody has to move, you know, and like maybe they go to Long Island City to a big warehouse, which would be great because it could open up space for new vendors to come in, like flower farmers to do something, have their stalls. But right now it's TBD.
You mentioned you like to think about what's next. What's on the horizon for you?
What I want to do is create a space that can exist between what the flower market offers and then what like your standard retail flower shop exists right now.
Yeah.
And figure out a way to work that. Because I'm not really interested in flowers as this like luxury thing anymore. I mean, it's like it's all luxury because it's flowers, but this like high end, inaccessible, precious thing. It's like, you know, I think that there's a lot of room to just open the door for anybody who wants to like work or explore like working with flowers to be able to do so.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, because not everyone, you can't. It's hard to create a business from it.
Yeah.
And not everyone's gonna be able to do that, and it's expensive. So it's like, you know, if you can find a way, it's like to like maybe have it be your hobby, and go have a place where you can have this hobby. You know, it's like paint your own pottery.
Yeah.
Or something. So I want to do that.
Yeah,
I want to
cool.
paint your own pottery flowers.
Yeah, but also from the customer standpoint, to think of rather than needing to have some crazy ornate display of flowers, you can just have them
I also
around.
think that people like to do things for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you see a lot of people really getting into cooking.
Yeah, or ceramics.
Not with the intention of like becoming a chef or like a ceramicist,
but it's still a great experience.
Just because they want the experience of like being involved in what they're making or what you're serving or what you're doing. So, and I don't think that there's flowers is any different than those things.
Right.
You know, everyone wants to be their own like DIY, like I did it all.
Yeah.
Martha. You know?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be their own Martha.
Yeah.
In their own way.
What is a flower?
What is a flower?
Yeah.
Well, that's a deep question. It's something that's like ephemeral and you can't really own it.
Yeah.
There's no owning it. You know, it comes and it goes on its own time. And, you know, you like want to like grasp this thing and hold on to it and you can't.
Yeah.
Because it's like a snowflake.
Yeah.
Kind of. But,
well, it's a beautiful connection to our own existence.
Yeah, it's just, exactly. It's, it is. It's like life.
Yes.
Flower's life.
It is life.
Just
and
it's blooming and then slipping away.
Yes, it's beautiful, but it doesn't last.
It doesn't last.
And that's why it's a symbol, right? And it's interesting to imagine why we find it physically beautiful. It's built in to feel that way.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really come across many people who are not interested or at least drawn to flowers in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the sermon, or was the Buddhist story, I'm going to botch it, but that the a bunch of people gathering around to hear the speech on like the meaning of life, and he just held up a flower and didn't say anything.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah,
Just fact check.
Fact check.
But
fact check.
That's cool. And then what about like I always like to ask from having done this now for so long and like really working hard every day, building a thing, making it work, whether it's a business or really anything, like what would you, from what you've learned, what would you say the main things to focus on for someone who's just starting out on a project?
Ask for help. It's like the biggest thing. Don't think that you're going to just like build something on your own and that you're going to have this like unique experience where like all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're a creative genius. Like this came out of nowhere. Like everything builds from something else. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to recognize that. Yeah, it's just it's all about people. It's all about your connections with people. I mean, if I didn't have, I don't care. I could have been like the greatest freaking floral designer on the planet, but if I was an asshole, right. Like, I just don't think that it would have worked out.
Yeah.
So it's building genuine connections with people and like working together.
Yeah.
Is a big thing. That's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm thinking like no matter what you do, because no matter what you do, you're gonna need help eventually. Yeah. You're never gonna be able to do something all on your own.
If you treat people well, you have solid relationships, and then the work becomes.
And if you treat people like
better.
dirt, you can become president.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So it depends what your goals are.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I think as like for the majority in like owning a small business, that's I think the most valuable thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Glad we made it happen.
I know.
Fox Fodder Farm.
Thanks for not giving up on me.
No, never. That's it for this episode. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Aaron Mason and Caitlin Watkins for your contributions to this episode. Thanks as well to A Nave Especial for the music. This is Ty, your host. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you soon with more episodes of the Jalapeno Podcast. Take care.